Well, hello again, friends and fans. Raptor here. Welcome to, well, Deck Spec. It's a new type of thing I'm trying out here for YouTube to show you guys a little bit more about Wargame AirLand Battle and about what weapon systems do. It's an intro to kind of a prerequisite to making a deck, and since so many of you have asked, then I have decided to do it. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to get to the armory. First you go to deck and then to armory here, and this helps you to look at every single vehicle in the game. That everything from aircraft to infantry, support, tanks, recon, etc. So anyway, one of the more important things you should know is the terminology of the game, and that's kind of a basic thing to get started with. And in fact, speaking of basics, we'll start with a very basic and very well-rounded group, the Americans, for NATO. So alliance is NATO, and the United States is the flag there, and we've selected only the logistics units for that. But first we're going to take a look at tanks, and more familiar with everyone, the M1a1. There you go. So this is basically the deck system, which is selecting, or well, this is the armory, but this is how you'll select your units, and everything over to the right side here, including the cost and what flag it's associated with. That's what we're going to go over right now, so you can determine what unit is best for you. Now, for some of you pros, you'll probably not want to watch this, but for some of you who might want to help out others, you may want to give out some important tips and things that I missed down below. Of course, there's a lot to this game, so there's a lot that I could miss, a lot that I could leave out, and things that I don't even myself know. So let's start with the basics. The M1 Abrams tank is it's a main battle tank for the United States, and a very heavy tank at that. It costs 135 points, and if you use your mouse over here, you can hold over the flag to identify that it's the United States. It costs 135 points, and here you can see that the cost deployment points when brought from the production menu, or rather bought from the production menu. It also indicates the reward points when destroyed in destruction mode. So, for instance, this tank may cost you 135 points, but if the enemy destroys it, they suddenly get 135 points for that unit, regardless of rank. This is the name of the unit, the M1a1 Abrams, and there's its main battle tank symbol over here, which is identified on the main screen as NATO. When you zoom out, you'll see these small NATO icons like that, and that's exactly what the main battle tank means for them. Here you can see its main gun. The main gun or tank gun are designed to fire either or both anti-tank and anti-personnel rounds on a direct trajectory, therefore requiring line of sight on a target. Thus, if this tank is on the other side of a forest, it cannot fire on a command vehicle on the opposite side of that forest, unless the forest is very thin and it can see through, which is pretty rare. MMG, the medium machine guns, are mounted on vehicles and provide them not only with extra firepower, but a mean of close defense against helicopters and infantry. They deal both physical suppression damages on armored targets. And another MMG, this is the M240, this was the M2 Browning. This is again the medium machine gun with the same description of the previous. So you can see here that the main gun, its name, let's start there, is the M256, and this fires kinetic energy weapons. Basically, this weapon fires anti-armor kinetic rounds, and the closer it is to its target, the more damage and AP it causes. Next is the M2 Browning. Oh, by the way, you get it's 120 millimeters, as you can see here. Its caliber and ammunition. Caliber and number of rounds available for this weapon. Ammunition can be refitted by supply units from the log category. That also includes the FOB. So it can fire 25 120 millimeter rounds. AOE. This weapon fires area of effect or anti-personnel explosive rounds. The HE value applies over an area of effect. Thus, the further an enemy target or soldier is away from the blast zone, the less damage it causes. These weapons, the MMGs, do not cause any of that damage. So let's drop down to the next thing, range. Weapons range against ground units. Against ground units, this is among some of the best in the class, which is 2,275 meters. I'm sorry. Yes, so that's among the best for ground range engagement for the main weapon. Ground target and helicopters here is displayed there as well. Range against helicopters, range against ground units. By the way, the color kind of also quickly indicates what it can do. Obviously, blue is the best, green is okay, orange or yellow or brown is pretty poor but acceptable, and red is just bad. Also, you can see here that they have, again, range to ground targets and range to helicopters. Keep in mind they can only engage ground and helicopters because airplanes, there is weapons range against airplanes. It's NA, cannot engage. Accuracy on the main gun here. Accuracy, weapon's chance to hit with a direct shot. Accuracy is modified by movement, covers, morale, experience, and the target size and distance. So again, if you have a highly elite unit, the chances of it hitting and the chance of it staying calm while under fire and hitting that target are much higher. We'll continue to go down the main gun. AP power, damages dealt to armored targets based on their armor value. It can cause 19. 11 accuracy, which is great. 19, which is good. HE power is 3, damage dealt to non-armored targets. It has poor to no effect on armored units. Suppression is 138, damage is dealt to enemy... they spelt that wrong. Enemy units' morale, lowering their combat effectiveness and eventually routing them. Rate of fire, here you can see it fires 10 rounds a minute. The number of rounds the weapon is able to fire per minute. This includes reload time. Okay, so that also covers the Browning there. You can see its HE power. You can also see its suppression and rate of fire. They're lower, among some of the worst in terms of rate of fire, but the accuracy is 3 and 4. And also you can see they can only cause HE power, which means they cannot penetrate armored vehicles, like for instance a T-80U. Alright, dropping down then, we see armor. You have a top value here, which is the unit's resistant to damage dealt from the top. This part is vulnerable to air and indirect attacks. 17 frontal armor. This is the unit's resistance to damage dealt from the front. This is usually the most armored part you want to turn towards the enemy. Also side damage. This also, by the way, is left and right sides. The unit's resistance to damage dealt from the sides. This part is more vulnerable than the front. So if you're engaging tanks, or if you're being engaged, make sure they don't engage you from the side or the rear. The unit's resistance to damage dealt from the back. This is usually the weak point of any armored unit, and that is true. So quickly here, you can quickly see kind of a recap of everything there in the slider bars. You can see front, side, back, and top, and also these numbers also change color accordingly. Strength. Number of soldiers in a squad or vehicle, maximum hit points. So this has a strength of 10, which means it has 10 hit points, which we'll explain a little bit later. Size is big. The bigger, the more chance to be hit. So here you can see this is a big unit, which means if an ATGM is flying at it, the chances of it, you may as well just, in your mind, think of size as being chances of being hit when targeted. Chances are pretty big. Thus, the armor here, 17, that's pretty important there, especially if it's being hit from the front. Optics are medium. The better the optics, the better chance of detecting hidden enemies. Chance to detect also depends on distance. Speed, unit speed when driving off roads. Right-click on position to move and ignore roads. 60 kilometers per hour. Optics are medium. Road speed for almost all vehicles in the game, I believe all of them, is 110 kilometers per hour. Unit speed when driving on roads. Use the move fast order to use the road network when appropriate. Drive safely on the roads. Stealth. The stealthier, the lesser chance of being detected by the enemy. Chance of hiding also depends on distance, cover, enemy optics, and firing noise. There you see it's poor. Fuel capacity is 2,000 liters. The amount of supplies this unit needs to refill its fuel tank. Stand still next to supply units, or right-click on them to refuel. If the unit gets hit, it won't be able to be resupplied for a little while. Also, autonomy or autonomy. The bigger the longer a unit can drive before running out of fuel. Stand still next to supply units. Basically, this is fuel economy. That's stranger how they've worded that, though. The bigger, the longer a unit can drive. It should be just the further. Stabilizer. The better stabilizers, the more accurate the unit will be firing on the move. So, the M1a1 is very good at firing whilst on the move. The year of production is 1985. It is criteria used when creating a deck or with a category bonus. You can see here that this is also available in the mechanized and armored types of decks, type of combat groups the unit will be belonging to. This is criteria used when creating a deck with the unit type bonus, which is exactly what I explained. So there's the basics of your menu there. This applies to airplanes, tanks, infantry, everything else. There's a maximum of 3 weapons per vehicle in the game. So for instance, even planes like, for instance, the A-10 Thunderbolt has 2, the GAU-8 Avenger and the Maverick, or for instance, a weapon system that has more than 2, which is, for instance, the Harrier, which has an ATGM, a Gatling cannon for itself, and also a AIM-9 infrared missile. But we'll go over that in the next video. Thank you for joining me, you guys. Again, you pros, give some tips down below, and feel free to kind of talk about anything that I missed. We'll get back to some things as well, as I know I couldn't cover everything just in the first video here. We'll talk about ATGMs, guided missile systems, and such in the next video. So until next time, bring that cornucopia of pain, keep the pimp hand strong, and I'll see you. Bye.